Hello, and welcome to this next episode of the Psyched podcast brought to you by the Women in Psychedelics Network. I'm your host, Kaya Roman, and today I am so psyched to have Deanne Adamson with me. I am a huge fan of this woman. She is an incredible pioneer in an area of psychedelic medicine that is absolutely critical. It's starting to become a more common conversation among those of us who are working in the industry. But I think there is just still so much work to be done around the topic of integration. So I'm very excited to welcome Deanne today. Thank you so much, Deanne, for joining me. And let me give you guys her official bio. Deanne Adamson is the founder and CEO of Being True to You, a transformational and psychedelic integration coaching company. Deanne has a master's in mental health counseling and has written several training programs. And believe me, these training programs are extremely extensive. I have checked them out. This includes Being True to You's world-renowned coach certification program, allowing others the opportunity to launch their own career in the fulfilling field of integration coaching, which, by the way, is super exciting. It's like a whole new career opportunity, a whole new field that's opening up. And Deanne, I've got to tell you guys, started this 13 years ago. So super pioneer. Deanne and Being True to You have partnered with many industry leaders and organizations in the psychedelic space to provide preparation and integration coaching for people undergoing psychedelic treatments in therapeutic settings. Deanne's programs center around the inevitable hardships and responsibilities of the human experience and one's own cultivation when using these tools to help protect the integrity, objectivity, sovereignty, and possibilities through this work. So welcome, Deanne, and thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation with me.
Well, thank you, Kaya. It's such a pleasure to be here and to speak to everyone listening today. You have a great podcast. I'm so excited about all the work we're doing. And thank you for that intro. That is just so sweet. So great.
Yeah. So I want to start with something super basic. We throw the term integration around a lot in our industry, in our parlance, but what is it? What actually is integration? Let's start there. What is your definition of psychedelic integration?
Yeah, I think it's a great place to start, as that is my expertise. It should be at this point, after 13 years of working with people through psychedelic therapies around preparation and integration. So I've thought about this a lot, and I've really processed this with different kinds of medicines, with different kinds of people, with our own experiences of what does integration mean. So I would say, in general, integration is the conscious and deliberate intention with psychedelic, or to use psychedelic therapies to create positive results in your life and to bring the fruits and insights of those experiences into your life. So in general, that's what integration is. We're capturing our insights, the breakthroughs, the aha moments, those most salient points. For some people, it's a premonition, it's truths. It could be a revealing of what is needed in that person's life, what their core values are, what their priorities in life need to be. And so when you're in these experiences, they seem to kind of shut down that default mode network and that egoic brain, that those automatic centers in the brain. And it gives you a chance to just have that conversation with your true self and to see things from a different perspective. And in that space, we tend to have those breakthroughs and aha moments and those little moments of truth. But what happens, they're very fleeting. And so what we're doing in the integration training is practicing how to hold on to those moments, and then maybe you write it down, maybe you record it, maybe you speak it to your sitter or something like that. And then afterward, you're taking a look at those pieces, all of those data points, that information, and you're thinking about, how can I apply this to my life? And that's really what integration is. It's applying it to your life. If not, most people would consider psychedelic therapies as just recreational experiences. The act of integration is really what is making it therapeutic.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I feel like this is a piece that is missing as more and more people are curious. And, psychedelic medicine is like in the news everywhere. And more people are starting to have these experiences, but they don't necessarily know the importance of the integration process. I like to say there's 3 I's to the ideal psychedelic experience. There's setting an intention, there's receiving the insights, like you said, which requires the right set and setting, and then there's the integration. And the integration is, I don't know what you would say, like at least 50% of the process, because you're having this profound experience, but it's not just about the experience, it's about what you do afterwards. And what we found, I assume you agree, is that these compounds seem to have this thing in common where they create this state of extra neuroplasticity in the brain. And the question is, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to form those new neural pathways? And that's where the integration really comes in. So you were quite a pioneer to have the vision of this need for folks going through a psychedelic experience 13 years ago, at a time when not that many people were talking about it. I mean, of course, psychedelic medicines have been around for thousands of years, but we're now at a moment where this is like a new industry and the laws are changing. And, there's retreats and there's clinics and there's ketamine that's legal. And so more and more people are starting to have these experiences and needing the integration. But 13 years ago, it wasn't that common. So what inspired you to start this?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. A lot of people ask that. I worked as a counselor. I worked as a victim advocate in the judicial system for domestic violence and juvenile crime. I worked in community and family sectors, like nonprofit sectors. So I worked with a lot of people by that time. I started the company, kind of high society people to like lower wage income societies. And so I just started to notice human suffering on a level that I didn't think that the system could really encompass. I started to notice that we've put humanity in a box and we've put human suffering in a box, and the prognosis for human suffering is very low. There isn't this standard for overcoming illnesses and overcoming tribulations and ailments. It's more about treating them, suppressing symptoms,
suppress it,
mitigating things. And so, as I went through my undergrad and went through grad school, and I'm like working in all these different sectors with humans going through so many different things, I just started to realize like, wow, this is the human experience, and suffering is a part of the human experience. It's not wrong. It's not necessarily a pathology. It's a part of our process. And instead of looking at these ailments and this adversity and this tragedy as unfortunate, I thought, gosh, what if we use this as access points to move into the transformational work, and we use it to cultivate, we use it to grow. And so I ended up starting a coaching business 13 years ago because I wanted to help people transform their lives. Working as a counselor, just sitting in the office, and I'm sure it's not like this for all counselors, but for me, it felt very mundane. And it just felt like the clients were coming in to get medicated with the doctor next door. It didn't really feel like they were there to help. And they were telling me that. I mean, I wasn't just guessing. They were saying, oh, I'm not here to change my ways. I just want to get medication so that I don't have anxiety, so I can continue my ways. And I'm just talking to you because I have to, right, to get medicine.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, this is like, and it's the same thing working in different industries. And so I realized that I wanted to do something different. And I did. I went on a leap of faith to give up my career in counseling. It's a big deal. After you get, you go through all of it, you get licensed, and then you leave it, and they don't let you come back. You have to go back through everything if you want to go back. And I did. I took a leap of faith. I started a coaching company. What happened was I met the ibogaine treatment community in Mexico. Wow. And so I've gone down there and I'm like, okay, what is this? Right? I didn't know. I'm like, you're giving people what's ibogaine to detox off of heroin? This is crazy. So I went down there to see, and I quickly saw in one weekend that people who were about to lose their life to opiate addiction, heroin addiction, other kinds of addiction, were coming down and taking this entheogen, this very powerful psychedelic. It's a derivative of iboga that comes from Africa. It's a plant medicine,
Mm-hmm.
the root bark. And
Mm-hmm.
it was giving people a life review overnight. And so through this 12-hour experience they would go through overnight, not only were they physically being detoxed from the all of the drug use and all the toxicity in their body, but they were having this psycho-spiritual experience as well. And it was so profound. They would come out the other side, no withdrawals, no cravings, no desires to use. And not only that, they wanted to be a good person. They wanted to go on a spiritual journey. They wanted to connect with their family. They wanted to make amends. And I'm like,
Amazing.
wow, everything that you need to get sober is happening in one night. So I basically, that's where it all started. I built an aftercare program for those clients, and it grew very quickly. I had to start hiring counselors, bringing on other coaches, clinics in different medicine fields were calling. They're like, we want integration. We don't have anything like this.
Mm-hmm.
We were
Mm-hmm.
seeing that any clinic that partners with a coaching team like ours is doubling their results, their success stories, their referrals, their bottom line, like everything was doubling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I started. I started with the Ibogaine detox, and what inspired me to continue doing this is I wanted to create an out of the box approach, because I had seen that the whole society has been put in a box, the human experience in a box, human suffering's been put in a box. The prognosis, there's a ceiling on healing, right? The prognosis isn't very high. And I wanted to create something that was bigger than all of that, because I've always been a spiritual person. And I believe that we are divine beings, and we have this healing potential that can't be understood by science and academia and technology that's trying to figure it out. But I don't think that we can really ever understand the mystery and the miracles that can happen through that divine connection when we really do make things right within ourselves. And for some reason, these psychedelic therapies are helping people take that personal inventory. Like through the medicines, people are taking that personal inventory, getting to what's most important. They're breaking out of their own box. And then I realized we have to create an integration program that can handle this, because right now
Mm-hmm.
our culture doesn't have it.
Yes. Wow. So impactful. And I find that just pretty remarkable that you actually started with ibogaine, which is, I think, one of the psychedelics that most people don't even know about. But I personally was very fortunate to go have an ibogaine treatment at a amazing treatment center called Beyond in Cancun in July, and work with a Being True to You coach as part of my process. So I feel like I got to be a little bit of a guinea pig. I wasn't dealing with a opiate addiction, but I think ibogaine is incredibly helpful for everyone, whether you're dealing with an addiction or not. It's a really, really remarkable experience. And the coaching was so critical, I feel like, to my success in taking the insights from that experience and applying them to my life. So if you could, maybe you could explain like what it's like for someone like me, who goes through a program with ibogaine, we'll use it as the first example, to work with one of your Being True to You coaches. What do they do? What does it practically look like?
Yeah, well, that is so special that you got to have that experience with Beyond. We love working with them too. Well, it depends on what kind of medicine that a person is using in terms of what it's going to look like working with us. Okay. So I'll just say people show up to psychedelic therapies for different reasons. For some people, they're showing up because they're just curious. They just want to know, like, what else is out there? What am I not seeing? What are these, what's all the hype about? They just want to check it out. And so for those people, it's like maybe a few coaching sessions will be enough. You do a prep session, you kind of tune in with yourself. Why am I doing this? Am I doing this for the right reason? Am I choosing a medicine that's going to fit and resonate with me the best right now? And what if I have a really big experience and stuff comes up that I wasn't prepared for, then I already have a couple integration sessions on the other side, and I
Right.
have someone that I can continue with if needed.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's people that want to go into these experiences and they want to work on something. And it might be something small, like I want to be more patient and less reactive. I want
Mm-hmm.
to be more present with my family and less distracted. And so
Mm-hmm.
in these situations, we recommend that people work with a coach, maybe 6 sessions, right? It's like you're
Mm-hmm.
actually wanting to work on something. You're not just going in to see what the magic is inside of these medicines. It's like, I want to do personal work here. And
Mm-hmm.
so in those situations, we usually will sign clients up for at least 6 sessions. They have 1 or
Right.
2 prep sessions. They've got 4 sessions on the other side.
Like one a week.
Yeah, exactly. Like 1 a week is usually fine because the coach and the client will identify other integration activities that can be done in the middle of those sessions. And then, you can continue on with coaching. You can keep buying another round. Now, if somebody's going into the experience and they're working on something heavy, and this is usually the situation, as something
Mm.
chronic, something
Yeah,
that they've been struggling with for years or decades, addiction,
sure.
depression, insomnia,
Trauma.
traumas, and even just like, um, patterns that keep happening, right? Like I keep going into a relationship and losing it. I keep making financial deals and they keep falling through. I keep starting a new company and it's going nowhere. So anything that has been happening for a while,
Yeah.
that's when you really want to invest in the coaching experience, because if you want to change something that has been with you for that long in your life, you really have to take a full analysis of your life, and you want that confidant to process each piece with. So
Mm-hmm.
it depends why people come to us. So everything is really customized for
Mm-hmm.
different medicines, different clinics, different clients, and that's what's great. So we can just talk to you on the phone and help you figure that out. But I would say in general, if like what would be a medicine that we could look at, Kaya, that someone might be doing?
I mean, ketamine. What about ketamine?
So ketamine.
It's the one that's legal in this country, and I'm guessing that you have quite a lot of coaches that are working with clients, who are going through ketamine treatment.
So ketamine is very interesting, when it first hit the industry, everyone's like, what is this? And I have to say, we have just seen the most amazing results coming from these clinics right now. And I think it's because
Mm.
of the heart and soul of the company, the program, that these facilitators are really, truly getting into it. I mean, some of them, not all of them. And then also having that really strong integration program around it. So we've seen great results. And what it would look like is usually you want at least 1 prep session before.
Okay. And
Assuming,
do you set your intention during that time?
yeah.
Okay.
Again, clients kind of come in different stages. So for some of them, they're like, I've been researching this for 6 months. I've watched all the YouTube videos. I know everything. I already have my journal filled out. And some people are ready to go. Some people are like, I heard about this yesterday. I have no idea what I'm
Right,
doing.
right,
And
right.
so we really have to like modify. But in general, let's say you have a prep session beforehand, you can, yes, get clear on your intentions. And when we talk about intentions, you're not creating expectations that you're going to be attached to and then disappointed if they don't happen. Really, what we mean when you're talking about intentions is tuning into where your work is. That's
Okay.
really what you want to do. So you're identifying what's important to me in life, what are my goals, and then where am I blocked? Like, what do I need to work
Mm,
on? Is it my
yeah.
mind? Is it my emotional body? Is it my pain? Is it my relationships? Is it my nutrition? And so what we're doing in that prep session is we're helping someone to identify where's the work, because when the journey time comes around, we have a tendency to want to avoid the work, right? So when the work comes up, we're like, oh no, I don't like that, because we have trained ourselves not to look at the truth, not to go into discomfort, and not to face these things. And so in
Mm-hmm.
that prep time, we're like, okay, I see it. I've been putting toxicity in my body. I've been dishonest with myself, and I haven't been keeping my commitments. These are sore spots for me. These are spots that I'll have a tendency to avoid. And then
Mm-hmm.
what we're doing in that prep session is leaning into the discomfort. And this is where
Mm-hmm.
our coaches are just so masterful, is like creating that ability to center and ground within yourself so that you can lean into that discomfort and see the truth, because ultimately that's what you want, right? You want the
Mm.
change, you want the results, and the results take work. So
Yeah.
the a lot that can go into prep, but for ketamine, you can do a session or two. That way you're understanding what you're signing up for. You're understanding how the medicine works. You're learning how to relax into it, how to surrender and let go, and also how to face your work when it comes up. And then typically what we will do is have clients do a session in between a series. So usually with ketamine, people are going to do a series. Typically, it's not just a one-time thing. You do maybe like 6 sessions or something like that. It's different for different clinics. And then you do a coaching session between it. And one a week is fine, because you have your journey. You already have maybe a workbook or something that you're going to be journaling out what you took from the experience. A day later, you have your coaching session, you process with them what that means, identify the insights. And it's like, okay, now I'm going to go apply those to my life. And then I'm going to have my next journey. So with ketamine, you can just do a coaching session in between all of them. And then, you'll do a few after. And then again, it depends what you're working on as to how long you'll continue. Now, I'll just say, if someone's working through addiction, something like this, we have clients that will meet with us for 2 or 3 times a week, because it's different when it's addiction than when it's something else. Like when you can't control yourself and you have that constant pull back into your old self, you'll need more touch points.
Got it. Okay. So with ketamine is a great example, but I think, with other psychedelic compounds too, there is a belief that it's helpful to work with therapy, like ketamine in conjunction with therapy, or MDMA in conjunction with therapy, psilocybin in conjunction with therapy. What's the difference between therapy and coaching, and can the two work together?
Yeah, I think it's a good question that a lot of people are wondering about. I mean, people have put a lot of trust into the therapeutic model for decades, and then coaching has emerged over the last couple decades. And now we're like, okay, what's the difference? Which one do I use? And do I use both? So I think it's a good question. The first thing I'll say is, yes, you can use both. There's a lot of similarities, and a lot of them can accomplish the same result, but there's also a lot of differences. And I'll go over those differences really quickly, but I will say, it's up to the person and the individual. Like as a coaching company, we don't want to keep anybody from working with a medical professional if that's what they need or that's what they want. And so we will often tell our clients to continue with their therapists and stay on track with their medical physicians. We don't ever want to interfere with that, right? Coaches never do. And in the same regard, therapists don't either. They don't want to stop a client from working with a coach, because it's like such amazing things can happen from working with a coach. So it's up to the individual if you want to work with both or one. Sometimes it just depends on accessibility and time that you have to put into this, and money and things like that. And people are different. Some people love going into coaching sessions and therapy sessions, and some people resist it. So to each own. I would say the differences are, okay, coaching, it's not in legislature. There's no license required. The training is expected, but it's not required by law because it's not in legislature. The client relationship is going to be more equal. I'm human, you're human. And I'm just, I'm a confidant, I'm an accountability partner, or based on my life experiences. Hopefully I've already transcended some of those similar problems to be in the position of a coach. I can help you, right? There's fewer restrictions when it comes to coaching. So the coach can, kind of go out of the box a little bit more and talk about more things, share more about themselves. There's still ethics and laws with coaching, but there isn't going to be like a rule book like there is in the medical field. Coaching is based on a growth and goal-oriented model, right? So it's all about being the best version of yourself, figuring out your goal, what it's going to take to reach them. With coaching, there's more of a holistic training, is my experience. I was a mental health counselor. I went all the way through the mental health counseling academic pathway, and I do not feel that is very holistic at all. I feel it's very academic. And so our coach training program that we created, I mean, a lot of people come out and they say, wow, now I know what holistic means. And so it's very holistic, depending on the coaching program you go through. And with coaching, again, like for us, it's getting out of the box. So thinking of the bigger picture, you're not just always healing your wounds and treating symptoms. I think that's where most of the industry just remains and never gets past that point of healing trauma. or healing something wrong. Whereas with coaching, we're going to break out of that box and we're going to look at the bigger picture of why are you here as a human being? What is your life purpose? And what does it mean to cultivate the path of the true self? So coaching is all about doing the work for yourself. It's these are the cards I've been dealt in life. These are the situations I have going
Yeah.
on. My responsibility to own them, transform them, and make something better out of this. With counseling, counselors have a license. You have to have official training. There's a board that you have to adhere to. There's a rule book. Counselors and medical professionals are the authority of the client. They will do their professional assessments with the client. They will provide a diagnosis. Then they will write a treatment plan for the client. Now, in today's day, I think counselors are more and more incorporating the patient's voice. But I mean, traditionally, that's not how it's been. Counselors and doctors are the authority of the client. With counseling, it's based on academia and medical model. It's based on psychotherapy. It's very science and data driven. They use treatment and pharmaceutical drugs in conjunction, whereas like transformational tools in conjunction with coaching. Counselors use pharmaceutical drugs in conjunction with therapy. And in general, like the focus is around mitigating the pathology. So the whole thing, everything I trained in wasn't really what mental health is. I trained in what abnormal psychology is. What is the illness that we're looking at? And so with counseling, you know, you're working on improving your functioning in life, you know, your mental functioning, your relationships, your ability to cope with life. You're reducing symptoms, you're working through developmental blocks, and you're working through like unresolved issues. So that's just in general the differences. Of course, that's not absolute, because there's so many great therapists and coaches that understand kind of the best of both worlds and are sort of like, well, at least for therapists and coaches, are kind of like meshing them, right? So I wouldn't say either is better or worse. They're just a little bit different.
Yeah.
Where they start from, what they're grounded in, what tools they use, and like the focus is just different.
Okay. Oh, such a good explanation. Thank you. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening who really appreciate this conversation and clarification, you know, on some of these things that are big questions in our industry of like how to design the ideal psychedelic experience for the best outcomes for, you know, for all of these people that are suffering and really wanting to make the most of going through this experience. So I'm curious, your coaches go through a pretty extensive training program, and I'd love for you to speak about the training program. What is it? What's involved? But a couple of things I'd love for you to cover as you describe that. Is it different depending on what psychedelic compound they're going to be coaching people in? Like if it's ketamine or ibogaine or psilocybin, is the training different? And do all of your coaches have the experience themselves so they can relate to what their clients have experienced?
Good question. So our coach training, just as an overview, we've been running it 9 years. It's in its 5th edition. It is a really powerful training. I would argue that it's still the best one here on earth because it's gone through so many iterations, and it was really built on what the people needed. It's not built on other textbooks or research or some third-party information. It's firsthand information. Our whole community is full of facilitators and integration coaches and people who've come from counseling and social work and all different fields who have gotten into this work. And they themselves, as well as the clients, communicate what's working, what's not, what's needed, what's not, what kind of model do we need to create to hold psychedelic therapies? Because like I said, there isn't a model yet. So over the last 13 years, I've been working on it. The coach training was born specifically in 2013. And right now it's a 5-month program online. You can do it from anywhere. And it's about 10 hours a week investment, give or take, depending on how much time people like to put into their coursework and stuff. And we have extra features and things like that. It's very prolific and comprehensive for sure. I didn't mean for it to be that way. It just kind of ended up that way, because I think if you're going to help people through their transformational experiences, it's a really big feat to take on. And it's something we need to take really seriously. And we don't have those kind of standards in the coaching industry. So I've kind of looked at that bar and I've thought, how can we raise it up? How can we create the highest, cleanest, most neutral, compassionate standards possible for this kind of work that we just know we're doing good? So we've put a lot of work and effort into it. And what it does is it takes people through a whole journey of their own life, so that they can look at all of those hidden aspects of themselves, because that's what's going to stop you up as a coach. You really can only go in the areas of conversation with your client that you've gone in yourself.
Such a good point.
I know. And it's like, if you have a wound with your father and you're like, oh, it's fine, I don't care, I don't need to fix that. And then you have a client who needs to talk about their father, but they're also talking about their kid, you're going to take them toward their kid because you're more comfortable there. And subconsciously, you won't even be aware of it sometimes. You're not going to go with them where they need to go. You're blocked there. So the training is really powerful. Again, I don't even know that we meant to create it this way. It's almost like God was with us on this process, because even I look back at it and I'm like, wow, this is really powerful training, but it's going to take everyone through a personal journey. We go through all states of suffering, to look at what are the different tragedies that people are experiencing, the different hardships, the different conditions, the different ailments. And like, we don't have to look at that through the diagnostic statistics manual that the counselors use, because that's part of the limitation of the medical field in general, is putting it in a box. We can actually just look at it from the human experience. So we go through, what does it mean to be a happy, healthy, conscious human being? How do we get there? How do we arrive on that? What is that? How do we guide people through that process, and maintain their dignity and their autonomy and their freedoms through that whole process, so that as they get closer to their true self, they're not bringing on all the biases of their coach or all of the propaganda in the industry? Because in the psychedelic industry, anytime there's a really big movement, there's going to be big corporations that jump inside of it and will use it for their own agendas to sell more products and sell more services and condition people's mind to be these consumers, to keep externalizing everything. And so the training is really clean and neutral. It really teaches the coach how to just be with the client without adding in all these things, and how to open up that human experience, that multidimensional experience, and look at it from a spiritual perspective, from a mental and emotional perspective, from a character perspective, like, who am I? How am I showing up in this world? And from a physical and environmental and relationship perspective. So it is quite prolific, and it's great training. And I forgot the second part of your question.
Oh, just wondering if you do specific training for different
That's right.
compounds. Like, is there an ibogaine training, a ketamine training, depending on if the coach is working with different people who are working with different types of medicines?
Yeah, so we have started creating that for after people get certified. The main 5-month training that we have is really for anyone who is already in the space. We train a lot of professionals, a lot of counselors, a lot of even doctorate level professionals. We train beginners. We train anybody who wants to know how psychedelic therapies work, transformational work works, how to guide people through this. I mean, we even have like moms and dads that are like, I don't want to be a coach, but I just want to learn more about what my kid's doing and like how to support him. And so we have all kinds of people from around the world that really come to the training, which is really special. And we teach on the top 10 medicines in there. So we go over ayahuasca and ibogaine, different kinds of DMT, ketamine, psilocybin, LSD, morning glory, things like this. I mean, these days there's so many different molecular compounds that are psychoactive that there's thousands of them. So it's really hard to train on all of them, but we do get into like the synthetics, synthetic medicine versus like the designer drugs. The designer drugs are kind of that category that people are using recreationally and can be abused. And so we want the coaches to understand the difference between what is a psychedelic therapeutic experience versus starting to use these substances more frequently, recreationally, for an escape. Because we
Right.
want the coach to be able to understand that so they can be a voice of reason when they're talking to the client.
Yeah.
After people graduate, they start to sense what kind of coach they want to be. I think that the
Mm.
program is very helpful in helping people understand, do I want to be an individual coach, a group coach? Do I want to work with iboga, ayahuasca? Do I want to help teens, young adults, senior adults? And so I think by the time people kind of get through the training, they have that very broad and complete understanding of this work. And then we're starting to create a specialized track. So for instance, we have a
Okay.
coaching pod, we have an ibogaine coaching pod. We'll bring in experts. I usually can teach the ibogaine pod, but if we need other people, we bring in other experts that will teach the coaches. And so then we have a track. And right now we don't even charge for that. We just kind of build that team within our company. That may change at some point as we're developing it. But yeah, those tracks kind of come after our training when people get specialized on the different medicine. And in general, there are differences with different medicines, but when it comes to doing integration guide work and integration coaching work, there's a lot of similarities. The niche aspects of coaching are something that come with experience, and do they take the medicine? We don't tell them to, but they do it, of course,
Yeah.
through the program, people talking about it. And we feel strong that people need to come to those decisions on their own. We've
Hmm.
never asked our community to go take a psychedelic medicine.
Okay.
They do, right? If someone wants to be an ibogaine coach, they know I'm going to have to go do that experience. So it just kind of happens naturally,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Ideally, I mean, it's good to understand what your clients have been through.
Yeah.
Okay, well, amazing. I am so thrilled that we've been able to have this conversation for so many reasons. But one of them is that I think there's a lot of people out there who are excited to know that this is like a new career path that you've really created, and it's so needed as the laws change and more people are going to be having psychedelic experiences. There is such a huge need for integration coaching. So I must say, I probably recommend your program, your training program, at least once a day to, people, young people who are like, oh, how can I get involved with psychedelics? Or people that are looking for like a change in their career or adding something new. I'm like, dude, you need to become an integration coach. We need integration coaches. So I'm
We
sending a
do.
lot of folks your way. But please tell our listeners, how can they find out more about Being True to You? How can they get in touch? How can they find out how to become an integration coach if that's what they want, or how to get integration coaching if that's what they want?
Well, first off, thank you, Kai, so much for having me on your podcast. Thank you for sending people to Being True to You. It's a life-changing experience when people find Being True to You. It's just really special for us to see what happens through this kind of work. You can find us at beingtruetoyou.com. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, wherever else our team has put us these days, I don't know, but just beingtruetoyou.com, or you can email
Perfect.
at beingtruetoyou.com. And you'll find our phone number there on the website. We're very quick to pick up the phone and call you back, so we can just have a conversation with you about how all of this works. And talking about the career, yeah, I think there's so much investment right now going into psychedelic therapies. And I still, I go to these seminars and conferences and talk to people. People are like, yeah, integration is important, but not a lot of people are invested in it. And so I agree.
Mm,
We need just hundreds and thousands of integration coaches
yeah.
all around the country to hold this kind of space. I think it'll always be differentiated from medical support. What the psychedelic psychotherapist can do in the journey is different than what the coaches can do in the weeks and months around these experiences.
Yes.
It's a very fulfilling career. It's a lucrative career, and it's also very fulfilling, and it holds you accountable to keep doing your own work. So if you're in recovery, you're in your transformational process, the best accountability to stay in your process is to help others. So
Amazing.
thank you. I'm excited.
Okay.
Anyone that's listening out there to give us a call. And thank you, Kaya. You've created some really special things as well. So
Yeah, well, thank you so
kind
much,
words.
Deanne. I really appreciate it, and look forward to working with Being True to You through our company, Keta MD, that is using Being True to You coaches for our clients. Because, as you said, as you're going through ketamine treatment or any kind of psychedelic treatment, you're in this state of extra neuroplasticity. So you really need to take advantage of that. So thank you again for the work that you're doing. And thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Kaya Roman. This is the Psyched podcast. And please check out Being True to You. Take care.